Hey, how's it going? I'm Ron.
I'm Zach.
We're from Widetrack, and we're here once again on Influences. And today we're going to talk about a band from England called Porcupine Tree.
One of our biggest influences.
Porcupine Tree is led by Steven Wilson, who is now a solo artist. He disbanded Porcupine Tree in 2011, I believe, after they toured for their last album. And Zach has been he's been kind of catching up with Porcupine Tree last couple days and said, hey, let's do Influences on Porcupine Tree.
A lot of bands I'll listen to a little bit, say, man, I really like these, and suddenly forget about them. And then when I come back to them with already a little bit of prior knowledge, I'm able to get into them a lot more.
Yeah, so what you been hearing here with these guys lately?
They're cool. I don't know. Well, there's a lot of reoccurring themes, kind of like how Gavin Harrison's drum beats are always very driving, how Steven Wilson's guitar solos kind of do a thing where they stop and then pick back up, like in The Sound of Music. They kind of do a thing where it's like a couple notes and then he chokes, a couple more notes, he chokes. That can be neat. Depends on how you use it. He uses it in a very nice way. I think it's really neat. But there's a lot of these recurring trends that I think are really neat, and they kind of reel the song's atmosphere back into like a It's Still Porcupine Tree type of feeling, you know? And you can hear a lot of Radiohead, a lot of Perfect Circle in their sound as well. Also, you may think this is a play on words.
Well, one of the things that I think is worth noting about Porcupine Tree is they came out, I believe, in the late 90s, and they had a different drummer at the time, and they put out a few albums with the old drummer. But then in 2002, they put out an album called In Absentia, and that's when they got the drummer Gavin Harrison.
Coincidentally,
yeah.
The album happened to house their biggest hits like Blackest Eyes, Trains, Sound of Music.
It's really interesting because I think that just kind of they had a few albums under their belts, and that's where they started really clicking with the songwriting and production. And so for myself personally, that's as far back as I go with them. I think that they're getting Gavin Harrison in the band also took them to a whole new level. He's one of the best drummers I've ever heard. He's just astoundingly amazing.
Played with King Crimson.
Yeah, he's in King Crimson now, so that right there will tell you that he's one of the best out there. But so from In Absentia, you've got 4 albums basically. You've got In Absentia, Dead Wing,
Fear of a Blank Planet, and their last album, The Incident.
Yep. And those 4 albums are pretty much, in my opinion,
the essential
Porcupine Tree. But by all means, this is just a starting point for you. Go down your own rabbit hole and dig what you dig, and that's what makes music a wonderful thing. But so as Zach said, In Absentia has a very big Radiohead kind of influence in terms of the mood and the keyboards and the production.
I mean, it's in pretty much all their later stuff, at least as far as I know, but more so in Absentia.
Yeah. There's a song called Gravity Eyelids that has just a really cool keyboard production on it. Like Zach said, Trains is one of their most accessible songs. Very acoustic guitar driven, very melodic. And there's another song called Blackest Eyes, which is the opening track of the album. That's really good as well. But from there they released the album after that is called Dead Wing, and we were just listening to that on the way over here, and that was a pretty big step for them.
Shallow and Lazarus are another 2 of their
Lazarus is I always like that song.
Yeah, they're absolutely amazing. You listen to the first half. We listened to the first half of the album on our way here, just to kind of give
It's
us...
one of those bands, like a song like Lazarus
Mhm.
or a song like Trains. You know, they have those songs that make you think, wow, this could totally be on the radio.
And
And then they
think
have the
it
other
was,
songs
yeah.
that are kind of like just epic progressive rock, 17-minute song going down the journey into the wormhole and all that. Yeah. Um, but they do have those occasional songs, and
even
now
parts of songs that are real smooth and acoustic, but still kind of dark and spooky. And
Yeah.
you say,
and Steven Wilson, the singer, guitarist, producer, he has since gone solo, and he wrote everything for Porcupine Tree, and now he writes everything for himself. And his new album here in 2017 is very pop oriented, and so it was always there. He's one of these artists who claims to have just a astoundingly immense wide net of influence.
Yeah.
He listens from everything from black metal from Norway to, you know,
What's on the radio today?
Electronic music and everything in between. And he's just trying to add these elements as part of his palette, and I really dig that. He, in my opinion, fails a lot of the time. But he's putting out so much stuff. He's one of the most prolific artists out there since Prince. He puts out album after album. He's got 5 or 6 different projects. In addition to Porcupine Tree and his solo work, he's got No Man and Storm Corrosion, and he's guest starred on other artists' albums. So he's all over the place. All that the guy does is work. So Deadwing was kind of when they started gaining some traction, and they were starting to sell out the theaters in the States. And that has Open Car is a good song. Arriving Somewhere But Not Here. Heart Attack in a Lay-By is, Zach said, Lazarus and Shallow. There's some good stuff on that album. For me, the album is a bit uneven. It's some stuff that I could take or leave, but the stuff that's good is really good. The album after that, 2007's Fear of a Blank Planet, that's the album that got me into the band. And the title track, the opening track, is my favorite Porcupine Tree song.
One of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, it's Fear of a Blank Planet, not to be confused with Public Enemy's Fear of a Black Planet. But the lyrics of that song kind of address desensitized youth and prescription drug culture in regards to teenagers. And the lyrics are extremely dark.
Which really sucks, because if you do drugs, you're lame. And this song may be cool, but remember, kids, drugs aren't.
Right. Anyway, that album has some great stuff on it. It's Fear of a Blank Planet, My Ashes, which has the same keyboard sound as Led Zeppelin's No Quarter. Very cool. Way Out of Here. Sleep Together, another good song. That's the first time I saw the band on tour, and they were really good on that tour. And then Steven Wilson went and made another album with a guy from the band Opeth, and the two of them made this really dark, weird acoustic album called Storm Corrosion. That to me is a fantastic album too. If you're a fan of either bands, I think you might find that pretty interesting, because they totally defied all expectations with that album. You know, everybody thought they were going to make this metal album, and they went in the other direction. They made this really creepy, dark acoustic album that's fantastic. Anyway,
after Fear of a Blank Planet, their final album, sounds chaotic, their final album, The Incident, was released in 2009.
The Incident was regarded as kind of a concept album. It's got some really great stuff on it.
Starts off with, I believe,
The Blind House.
and Occam's Razor.
Yeah, little introduction, and then The Blind House.
Helion to Electric Eye.
Yeah. yeah. Blind House is one of my favorite
Preparing You.
Porcupine Tree songs. That's one I would recommend. Another one called Drawing the Line. Fantastic. And I Drive the Hearse, another song that I could totally hear on the radio. And they had a big hit off that album in England anyway, a song called Time Flies. So these are just a few of the tracks that we would recommend from Porcupine Tree. And so after the incident, Steven Wilson went solo, and a lot of our friends and us, we've talked about his solo work, and we're having a hard time getting down with it. A lot of people like it, but it's just not affecting me personally the way Porcupine Tree did. And so we're kind of hoping that one day Porcupine Tree does reunite for another album. I'm fairly certain it'll happen. They'll at least do one more album and tour. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and hopefully another Storm Corrosion album as well. Blackfield is another band that Steven Wilson plays with and sings about half the songs with. They've got 3 albums out at least, and they're one of the more popular offshoot bands that he's done overseas. Not much success in America yet for any of these bands, including Porcupine Tree, but they're pretty big overseas. And Steven Wilson's new solo stuff is doing really well overseas. So, yeah, but influence-wise...
Is something interesting about Steven Wilson is he said with Porcupine Tree, he's not really one of the greatest guitar players. He's not much of a guitar virtuoso. You can hear it if you listen for it, but what he plays really serves the song, at least I think. And he has some of the best musicians with him on Porcupine Tree. Gavin Harrison, for example.
That's a great point. That to me has been my biggest thing that I've been influenced by Steven Wilson, is he kind of came out and he said, you know what, I've got an okay voice. I'm nothing like a Chris Cornell or whatever, but I can sing the songs I write, and I write songs and I produce my own stuff. I'm not great on any instrument, but I'll surround myself with great players and I'll write good songs. And that was a big confidence builder to me, to say, you know what, just get started and do what you do and create your own universe of music, and you're only as good as you are. You just try to get better at that, and as soon as you start finding a vision of what your music is, then you start getting better at that, and you start homing in on that. And so that's been very influential to me personally, and being surrounded by those kind of musicians. Now I got a really sweet bass player and writing partner here who's just getting better and better, and the other guys in Widetrack, it's been a really fortunate thing to hook up with guys, and they raise your game. They make you better, they make you think outside your own bubble, and it's all good stuff. So Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson have been very influential. Another thing that's worth mentioning about Steven Wilson is he's really gotten a lot of renown lately he's remixing classic progressive rock bands' albums.
In the Court of the Crimson King, he remastered.
He remixed and remastered. These artists are letting him take the original tracks into his studio, and they're saying, remix my album. So he's done that with King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Jethro Tull, a number of these bands, and they keep asking him to do this, and he does a fantastic job, which only makes his albums better. So,
because I think that's really funny too, is like kind of how you can see he's such a great musician, is all of his solo work is very pop oriented, where Porcupine Tree is very dark, kind of metalish, but not really metal aspects, I guess you could say, rock. And you've got prog albums that he's remastering, like he's got little parts from each sort of genre, and he's combined them all to make his art.
I think that's a really cool thing, to be able to say, I'm not any kind of one band, but of course these kind of bands usually get regarded as progressive rock bands.
Yeah,
so it's like, oh, he can't be categorized, call him progressive, which that's pretty cool.
Alternative.
yeah, there's alternative aspects to it. There's metal. There's you know, the Radiohead kind of vibe. Um, there's avant-garde to a lot of this stuff.
We just think that, you know, with all these influences being even apparent in your music, at first glance, you think how many more were influential, like influences were influential to writing the music, or what inspired you to think, oh, that would be a good drum beat for this song, or that would be a good guitar part for this song. And you think it's got to take a lot. So, I mean, that really gives me a respect for Steven Wilson and just how many influences you must have to have that many projects going on, that many different types of songs and parts. And
Yeah,
such and such.
the things I've read by him is he's really feeding his head with a lot of music that's seeking it out, discovering it, studying it, and applying what's useful to him. That's another way in which we're very influenced, is finding stuff off the beaten trail. And you know, there's good stuff everywhere. You know, it isn't a matter that the cream rises to the top all the time. Sometimes some of the best music is out there. It's buried, and you got to dig it up. And so guys like Steven Wilson provide a little bit of a map in certain regards of some stuff that's out there. So, well, once again, thanks for listening and watching, and we got more and tuning in, and we got some more stuff coming your way. Movies, books, bands, TV shows.
Perhaps even local artists.
Local artists are coming up very soon as well.
Yes.
We're trying get our scheduling together for that, but rest assured that is going to be happening. It's on the horizon. So, any case, till next time, keep on rocking.